Hello, and welcome to the SAF Magazine podcast. I'm your host, Anna Simet. Thanks for tuning in. On today's episode, I have with us Neal Jakel of Fluid Quip Technologies. Neal, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you guys today.
Super glad to have you on. So why don't we just start by having you tell our listeners a little bit about Fluid Quip and what the company is all about.
Sure. So Fluid Quip Technologies, we are an engineering technology firm. We've been in the ethanol space for coming up on 15 years now, but our roots are deeply embedded into the ag processing industry. So a lot of past corn wet milling, ag processing experience. We have a large staff of dedicated process engineers that just love to develop and design new technologies, new systems, new ways of doing things, with always a focus of creating value for the end users.
So you're going to be presenting at the upcoming North American SAF Conference and Expo, which is being held in Minneapolis at the end of this month. And the topic you're presenting on is low carbon ethanol as a SAF feedstock. Right now, ethanol is a key feedstock for the SAF industry, but there are a couple of challenges for ethanol producers, particularly when it comes to their CI scores. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So when you look at first of all, ethanol is a great molecule. It's a great building block to go into a lot of different things, not only as a base fuel for cars, but also as a building block for aviation fuel. The challenge there is you got to put a lot of ethanol molecules together to do that. And when you make jet fuel out of ethanol, it's a very energy intensive process. So the goal is to create a sustainable aviation fuel from ethanol. You really have to start with an ethanol that has a low carbon footprint to begin with, because of the added carbon footprint to convert that ethanol into SAF. In today's environment, a base ethanol plant, traditional or typical Midwest base ethanol plant that processes corn, makes ethanol, makes corn oil, makes distillers grains, and dries that product. It typically will have a CI score anywhere from some can do it in the low 60s to low 70 on a CI score. The challenge you have is that that's too high of a starting point for a SAF play. Typically, we like to see, or what the SAF industry and SAF, the conversion technologies, they really need to be down into that 40, max 50 CI score to start with from an ethanol molecule. And so really what you have to do is take a look at how do you do the conversion, how do you get that SAF, or how do you get the base ethanol CI score lower? And there's a lot of ways of doing that, and a lot of engineering solutions out there and technology solutions. The key is figuring out which ones to put together, because there's not a single answer to say, oh, here's a magic wand, I'm going to make a low CI score. There's a lot of things that have to come together to really drive that CI score down. So when you look at an ethanol plant, obviously you have the base corn itself, which is a great molecule in a sense. I call it a molecule or feedstock to start with. You have that base production for corn origination to produce the corn, produce the starch. But then it takes nat gas, and it takes electricity to convert that starches in that kernel corn to ethanol. And the goal there is start looking at, how do I look at my nat gas? How do I look at my electricity? How do I look at my water usage to drive those usages or utilizations down? Or how do I integrate greener, better solutions or better feedstocks into the process? So for example, when you look at the electrical component, if you're pulling off the grid, and depending on where you're at, it varies, but most grids are going to still have a fair amount of coal-based electricity coming into the facility. So that's going to hit your CI score. However, if you look at options in terms of wind generation, solar generation, nuclear, directly coupled to nuclear power, or even hydroelectric, especially out on some of the coastal areas, you now can get much more of a greener electric energy coming into your plant. So now you start looking at, how do I augment, or how do I offset my nat gas usage to produce ethanol to now look at a electrical usage to produce ethanol, because there is an energy component to produce energy, to produce ethanol. You do need energy. You have to put in heat, whether that heat comes from electrical components or whether it comes from a nat gas, i.e. steam component, doesn't matter. Either one can work. And so you start looking at how do you integrate, the technologies out there. For example, we've looked at in working with to integrate, mechanical recompression, which has been a technology that's been around for a long time, but we use electricity to generate energy and generate temperature and pressure versus steam or natural gas. So those are things you start looking at in terms of how do I get my score lower and lower? How do I make a wet product and not a dry product? Or how do I look at integration of a fiber conversion technology utilizes the fiber component to produce that ethanol molecule? So that's what FQT, Fluid Quip Technologies, what we do is say, okay, we have lots of tricks in our bag. Which ones make the most sense for your location in terms of what you have available? And that's really where our engineering team comes into play to look at that process and look at optionality and design and integrate the optimal technologies, plural, because it's not a one-stop shop. There's multiple things that you can look at in terms of integrating into the ethanol facility. So that's, when you look at it as a holistic, you can't you have to sit there and say, take carbon sequestering out of the equation, because if you're located near a pipeline, that's great. You're going to get some points there. If you can self-sequester, even better. But for those plants that don't have that option, you really got to look at some of these other technologies that we're working on and bringing to the market in terms of how do you drive that electricity down, or how to use more electricity if it's greener and drive your nat gas utilization down, so you can get down into that 40 to 50 CI score range. And then couple on top of that, you start looking at best practices, farming practices. And there's some programs out there that are starting to do those detailed trackings of the carbon footprint at the plant level, at the farm gate back to the plant level, and to drive that number lower and lower, and incentivize the producer, incentivize the farmer to drive their carbon footprint lower and capture that value all the way through the chain. So there's lots of opportunities out there, lots of excitement, and really corn as a starting material is a wonderful crop, rich in carbohydrate, rich in energy, as we say. It's really an energy crop, and using the start with that to convert to ethanol and then optimize the ethanol process is what we do, and really have a great time kind of doing it. I know it's probably a long-winded answer to your question, but it's definitely exciting for us to be participating in this space, and we are about to launch a very low carbon, mid 40 type range ethanol design, greenfield design for a major client we're working with. So more to come on that news.
That was a great answer. So Neal, what can those who attend your presentation at the conference expect to learn about?
Well, I think the key thing that we want to our audience to walk away with, and we always say we love to learn to teach. As engineers, we really focus on how do we solve problems. If you come hang out in our offices on Friday afternoon, we're typically brainstorming problems. There's 4 or 5 engineers solving problems, and drawing on a white. We have lots of whiteboards everywhere in our office, so always looking to figure out how to innovate and bring that next solution to the marketplace. But really, what I hope to gain is an understanding, knowledge that there are tools today, but it really starts with good engineering practices, understanding the base ethanol plant, understanding the how does everything integrate together to drive that CI score down. So in other words, it's not just a one technology. If you do this, great, you get this one result. What we really strive is how do you pull it all together and really get a step change, not incremental, but a step change reduction in CI. That's really what I hope people walk away with, is that learning of what we bring to the table and how to do it and the right way to do it, because unfortunately, there's been a lot of technology failures in our industry. And I think that's one of the things we pride ourselves on is, the robustness of our engineering practices and designs. We've always tell our clients, we know a lot of what not to do. We've learned over the years with our extensive engineering team what doesn't work. So we bring that value of what does work to the table, and we hope that people walk away with that learning and knowledge of making sure they're asking the right questions and really peeling back that onion when they're looking at different technologies, because integrating everything together, that's not trivial. There's a lot of details that go together when you think about the complexity of an ethanol plant, and to make that ethanol molecule, there's a lot of interactions between the front end, back end, and everything in between. And that's what we do well. And we hope our clients learn and understand that better and get appreciation for what we're about to roll out to the industry in terms of a world-class greenfield ethanol design that really is going to change the dynamics for the SAF industry.
Sounds like it's going to be a really great presentation, Neal. I really look forward to it. So as my closing question, maybe as an attendee of the conference, rather than a presenter, what would you say that you find the most fascinating or interesting in particular? Is there anything that you're really interested in learning more about at the conference?
Well, I think there's a lot, actually. It's an exciting conference, an exciting growth area for the industry, and I'm really looking forward to meeting new people. We know there's a lot more folks that are now coming into the marketplace that are excited, that are looking for, to do investments, to participate in the SAF growth. And so looking forward to meeting them and hearing what other solutions they're bringing to the table, and how do we work with those technology providers, because we are, even though we have our own technologies and we are an engineering firm, we also work with other people's technologies and work to integrate those in together. So we kind of consider ourselves a little bit technology agnostic in that area. So looking forward to meeting other folks and hearing all the great stuff that's going on in the industry going forward.
Really exciting stuff. Neal is presenting at 10:50 a.m. on Tuesday, August 29th at the conference, the North American SAF Conference and Expo at the Minneapolis Convention Center. His panel is The Keys to Successful Deployment of SAF Production in Corn Country. To learn more or register, visit safconference.com. Neal, thank you so much for joining the podcast, and I certainly look forward to seeing you in Minneapolis.
Thank you very much, and the same here.
And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in and hope to see you at the event. Until next time.